Hello, this is Tony Hiller from RealClimateScience.com. Last week, the usual scamsters at CNN and elsewhere were claiming all-time record heat for India. They said the record heat in Delhi in northern India was nearing the limits of human survival. But then the Indian government reported that the claims of record heat were coming from defective thermometers, which were reporting temperatures about 3 degrees too high. But never mind their humiliation from last week. 2 days ago, they were still making the same claims. India is always very hot this time of year. Mark Twain made some interesting comments about it in his book Following the Equator. Mark Twain said, "When a person is accustomed to 138 in the shade, his ideas about cold weather are not valuable." I believe that in India, cold weather is merely a conventional phrase and has come into use through the necessity of having some way to distinguish between weather which will melt a brass doorknob and weather which will only make it mushy. And he said that people changed their doorknobs from metal to porcelain sometime during May. India does get very hot during May and June. This graph shows all 235,670 daily maximum temperatures from India in the Global Historical Climatology Network database. The data is current through today, and as you can see, they've never recorded a temperature of 50 degrees Celsius at any station in India. And the hottest temperature this year is not as hot as the hottest temperatures from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Also note that NOAA has very little temperature data from India prior to 1973. Now let's take a look at the individual stations which NOAA has in their daily temperature database. Bangalore has never made it up to 40 degrees Celsius, and their hottest temperature this year was not as high as their hottest temperatures in previous years. Now I'm going to flip through the rest of the stations in India, and you'll see it's a very similar story everywhere. No record heat, and they tend to have very short, fragmented temperature records. Bikaner in the Northwest Desert is the hottest location in India, and it's not as hot as it was in past years. This record is pretty useless because of missing data, but it's nowhere near as bad as this one. And it's the same story throughout India. A pretty much useless data set. How does NOAA construct a long-term temperature data set when they're lacking data for most of the years and most of the planet? What they're doing doesn't make any sense. Now let's take a look at what AI has to say about me. Tony Hiller is an American political activist and blogger. Actually, I'm a scientist and an engineer. Some key points about Tony Hiller. Hiller's real name is Stephen Goddard. That's incorrect. My real name is Tony Hiller. It says that I feature articles and videos questioning various aspects of climate science. But quite the opposite is true. I spend my time showing that what's called climate science is actually junk science. But this is my favorite. Many climate scientists and experts have criticized Hiller's claims and methodology. They argue that his analyses often cherry-pick data, misinterpret scientific findings, and do not withstand scientific scrutiny. Their side cherry-picks a single bad reading from one thermometer and persists in spreading misinformation even after they've been corrected. And what I did was show the entire daily temperature data set from NOAA for India. So the climate scam professionals who run with one bad data point from one day in India accuse me of cherry picking when I show the entire temperature data set. The behavior of the press and academics involved in this climate scam is embarrassing. In fact, it's a complete farce, and Toto is going to continue calling them out as he's been doing for the past 16 years.